This is Daniil Medvedev's situation. No ATP titles in more than a year. A drop from world number 2 last year to currently world number 5. A combined 7 straight losses to Sinner and Alcaraz, which he finally snapped in the Wimbledon quarterfinal against Sinner this year, and question marks about his serve and potential to become a multiple-time Grand Slam champion. Now, don't get me wrong, Medvedev isn't having a bad season by any stretch. But I went and took a closer look at his game and found out just a few reasons why the Russian isn't quite delivering the way that he used to. Starting with the most obvious, his serve. This is the current serve quality rankings among the Olympics' top 16 seeds over the last 52 weeks from Tennis Insights. This is the tour average on the y-axis at 7.9, and here is Medvedev slightly above at 8.0. Take a look at all the players that have been serving better than Medvedev. In the last couple of seasons, Medvedev established himself as a big serving counterpuncher. He had a top 5 serve in the world, usually painting the lines with precise flat serves that formed a big part of his game. These are the numbers for Medvedev's ace rate over the years. They were usually double figures or very close to, but here he is sitting at 7.6% this year. This means that you have to look as far back as 2016, which is close to the beginning of his career to find a lower ace rate. We also see that he's winning significantly fewer first serve points and service points won in general. I'm not going to go too deep into the stats because from watching him alone and also taking a look at the numbers, it's clear there's a problem with the serve. But what exactly happened? Well, the answer is simpler than you might have expected. Medvedev gave us some insights into his physical struggles a couple weeks ago, and he revealed that he's been dealing with some shoulder problems.
My shoulder been bothering me since a very long time, so that's something we're working on and something it gets better. It's just sometimes that we have setbacks.
With shoulder injuries immediately affecting how you serve, it's easy to see why Medvedev might have been struggling on that front. With the big serve taken out, let's see if anything else has changed about Medvedev's counterpunching abilities. Medvedev wasn't exactly a standout junior back in the day. He never made it past the 3rd round of any junior slam, and only managed a career high of world number 13. According to Medvedev himself, he was one of the junior players in the worst shape, and as a teenager, he sometimes experienced cramps only 30 minutes into a match. Even after turning pro, he wasn't the professional he is today. He admitted that he often stayed up late into the night playing PlayStation games, but all that has changed. Medvedev has dedicated himself to consistent physical training to maintain the high fitness levels necessary to succeed on the tour, and it's paid off big time. Watching the Russian, not many people were sold on his unorthodox and awkward style of play. Here's what Nick Kyrgios said about Medvedev as a junior player.
I played him in juniors at Roehampton.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I beat him like maybe 6-3, 6-3, like, you know, I was like the dominant junior and I was like, this guy's terrible. The worst technique I've ever seen. I was like, I honestly said, I was like, this guy should just give it up. Like, There's no way he's gonna make it work with those swings.
Check this out. This is literally the average return position of Daniil Medvedev on the court. Just a little problem though. Medvedev is nowhere to be found on the screen. His extremely deep positioning, sometimes more than 5 meters behind the baseline, allows him to take full swings at the ball from the back of the court, rather than just blocking the serve back into play. It's a great strategy against many players because he sometimes manages to either extend the rally or hit incredible winners from far back, but when you meet someone like Alcaraz, this is what happens. Alcaraz hits you with a heavy kick serve out wide, leaving him with all the time in the world to get into the net before the returner even makes contact with the ball. It's just one of the reasons we often see Medvedev struggle against Alcaraz in their head-to-head, because Carlitos just hits him with the drop shots and clinical volleys to expose him on such deep return positions. Medvedev adopts more aggressive return positions closer to the baseline from time to time, and while he's seen some success with it, he says he would rather stay back. Since only a few players can punish Medvedev with a clinical net game like Alcaraz, Medvedev continues to enjoy great success on the return. Here's how his return shot quality is rated on Tennis Insights. Looking at the x-axis, we see that Medvedev's return shot quality is actually the best on tour. And as funny as that might sound, the return positioning is only a small fraction of the mystery behind Medvedev's game. When we look at his forehand, what do we see? A ground stroke that you might call one of the ugliest you've seen because of the takeback and the finish around the neck. You would think that because of the high loop and high backswing on his forehand, Medvedev should have problems with timing, but that's not the case. Medvedev has shown time and time again that his timing is impeccable. He continues to make clean contact on his forehand, especially on fast surfaces, and what follows is a forehand delivery with a sort of flatter topspin. Definitely not what your tennis coach would recommend, but Daniil has shown that technique isn't all that there is to tennis. Despite not having an aesthetically pleasing forehand, we've seen an uptick in aggression and efficiency on the shot this season. It's also funny that Medvedev's backhand happens to be his stronger ground stroke, despite being arguably technically deficient in some way. He has a significant gap between both hands, with the non-dominant hand a little closer to the racket stroke, and also has his elbows tucked in. This leads to a shorter range of motion, and subsequently a shorter finish. The reduced upper torso rotation means that Medvedev won't generate insane amounts of spin off the backhand. This is why you literally see him using the opponent's pace to counterpunch the ball, and it kinda reminds you of Jimmy Connor's backhand in some way. The negative side of this style of play is that on a surface like clay where the pace is generally taken away, we usually don't see him do so well compared to the other surfaces. Not to mention that his flat ground strokes don't do much damage on clay anyways. Here's what Daniil says about playing on the surface these days though.
I'm okay to play on clay, like I don't really hate it. I know that there are some parts of my game which are maybe not adapted at 100%.
Medvedev stands at 6 feet 6 inches tall. Nobody moves so well at that height. Normally, for the taller guys, we can say stuff like, oh, he's quick for a big guy, but Medvedev's court coverage and agility is next level. The lateral and vertical movements are so exceptional, it just looks like he's everywhere at the same time. He also has the stamina to back it up. Daniil's height comes with a long reach that also makes it difficult to lob him or hit him with a pass. And then there's the consistency part in all of this. You could also argue that Medvedev's biggest weapon could be his ability to get the ball back in play consistently without necessarily thriving on power or spin. In a sense, being a good returner isn't always about cracking return winners or wrong-footing the server. The immediate goal is simply to stay alive in the rally and drag the opponent into longer service points. Returners don't always have the chance to finish points early, so extending the rally is almost always a positive thing. The longer the rally, the better the returner's chances, even if the process is gradual. The truth is that by the time you successfully take away the advantage from the opponent's serve by neutralizing the next shot, or prolonging the rally to greater than 4 shots, you're more likely to get neutral rallies, which you can snatch like Medvedev does. At the end of the day, you might get more bang for your buck from extending the points because of the knock-on effect that might wear out the server and decrease their energy for the next delivery. He excels at creating long points, and when you do that a lot, you don't necessarily have to convert a particularly high rate of those long points. Medvedev breaks serve simply by putting one more ball in play. And I should totally mention that only Alcaraz, Alex de Minaur, and Sinner have won more points from a defensive position than Medvedev has this season. I also tracked the percentage of break points converted this year on Tennis Abstract, and guess who tops the charts? Your one and only Daniil Medvedev. We also know Daniil is a chess master on court. The way he adapts to a player's strategy mid-game and switches up on you is unbelievable. He's also one of those players who can find solutions on the go. He doesn't have the firepower of Alcaraz or the sleek wrist and elbow movements of someone like Nick Kyrgios, but he's bent on making sure that you don't get many comfortable or straightforward shots to play. The only solution against Medvedev's defense is to do what Alcaraz does, unleashing the entire offensive arsenal. Volleys, drop shots, powerful ground strokes, literally everything. But what can we make of Medvedev's season so far? Final in the Australian Open, semi-final in Dubai, final at Indian Wells, semi-final in Miami, round of 16 in Monte Carlo, quarterfinal in Madrid, round of 16 in Rome, round of 16 at Roland Garros, round of 16 in Halle, semi-final at Wimbledon, and here we are now at the Summer Olympics in Paris. Despite seeing one of his biggest weapons, his serve, compromised due to physical struggles, Medvedev has had to rely solely on his counterpunching ability and his problem solving to remain competitive in the top 5. Obviously, the last couple of tournaments haven't been good for him, but going into the North American hardcourt swing, I expect to see the hardcourt specialist himself slugging it out for the titles. Speaking of titles... But hold up, why does Medi fall just short at Grand Slams? Let's dig into some of the common narratives about him. Medvedev is probably dealing with some mental scar tissue from his tough losses in Grand Slam finals. Let me respond to this by saying that going 1 for 6 in Grand Slam finals definitely comes with some scar tissue. Daniil is the only man in the Open era to lose 2 major finals from a 2-set lead. 3 of his 5 Grand Slam final losses have been in tough 5-setters. I was talking to someone about Medvedev a few days ago, and we were like, this guy is just too good to possibly only have won 1 slam. But at the end of the day, I can't say for sure the extent to which this scar tissue might have been affecting his performance at the last hurdle, because we also know that he struggled physically against Sinner at the Australian Open. While he no doubt has the mentality of a champion, this might be a good time for the Russian to remind himself of some of his past achievements. Back in 2022, Medvedev became the first man outside of the Big Four to become world #1 since Andy Roddick all the way back in February 2004. That's something 99.9% of players will only dream of. Medvedev will be lucky to win another slam. He's now 28 years old and has Sinner and Alcaraz to contend with. I don't agree with this statement because if there's anything that we've seen from Medvedev, it's that he's shown time and time again that he has the ability to take anyone down. He might not get the W's over Sinner and Alcaraz as often as he might like anymore, but nobody should ever make the mistake of writing him off, because if history tells us anything, it's that Medvedev usually rises from the ashes when you write him off. Medvedev has made 2 more US Open finals, 3 Australian Open finals, and back-to-back Wimbledon semifinals, so he definitely has it in him to become a multiple Grand Slam winner. Of course, I'm favoring him in the hardcourt slams. I bet he'll get another US Open title, or bag that elusive Australian Open trophy eventually. I would also go as far as saying that Medvedev's mental game and demeanor in big matches is solid. We've seen peak Medvedev already. He can't get much better than this. Medvedev announced that he had hired retired French star Gilles Simon at the beginning of the year to help him work on some aspects of his game. Simon is on the team as a consultant and doesn't often travel for tournaments. Because of how smart he is and his ability to learn things quickly, I think that Medvedev might still have his best days in front of him. And although I'll admit that's a debatable one for us fans, there's absolutely a bigger problem we need to address. Medvedev has terrible behavior that needs to be checked. He can't continue to abuse umpires. We've known Daniil to have a short temper in the past, but over the years, Medvedev managed to get in control of himself and even display a calm demeanor in important matches. I understand that players might need to take out their emotions or release some tension on court, but there should be a strict limit. Players sometimes might scream at themselves or smash rackets, which is something we often see, but abusing umpires shouldn't be tolerated.
Off mic.
Violation and sportsmanlike conduct. Warning, Mr. Medvedev.
Now, my Russian isn't so good, but the word on the street is that Medi said F you, F you, F you, you piece of to the umpire in his semi-final match against Alcaraz at Wimbledon. Some fans felt that Medvedev should have been defaulted for that. Really though, it's a complicated situation. On the one hand, being DQ'd on such a grand stage might hurt the viewership, which means that fans also end up on the losing side. On the other hand, you might want to put more stringent measures in place to make sure that umpire abuse doesn't become a common theme. Apart from such occasional behaviors on the court and altercations with the crowd, I think it's pretty safe to say that Medvedev is one of the most genuine guys out there. He gives one of the best interviews I've seen from any tennis player. Pure, unfiltered opinions, witty comments, and thoughtful responses to questions, rather than those bland PR responses we see from some players. Medvedev has been one of the most consistent top players since he first broke into the top 10 in 2019. Honestly, there aren't a lot of players, either now or in the past, that can easily be described like Daniil Medvedev. The former world #1 has created a unique identity for himself and has proven that you can become the best player in the world without having the best technique or the most attractive style. He's also shown that he can win titles on surfaces that aren't suited to his game, which only makes him one of the more difficult guys to analyze. The sheer willpower from the Russian is unbelievable. Just when you write him off, you see him beating Alcaraz like he did at the 2023 US Open semifinal, or beating Sinner at the 2024 Wimbledon quarterfinal. Without a title for more than a year, not being able to defend any of his 20 ATP titles so far, a weird form, and facing stiff tests from the next gen, my money is on an incredible turnaround for Medvedev come the North American hardcourt swing. But if Medvedev is going to become more than just an occasional threat to Alcaraz and Sinner, something definitely has to change. First of all, the serve will need some fixing, which goes hand in hand with recovering from and addressing any physical issues that he might be dealing with. Secondly, he'll need to improve on his serve +1, or the second shot after the serve, to capitalize on the offensive power of his serve. This would also mean working more on the volleys and approach shots. At 28 years old, it's not very likely that we're going to see a completely different player from the one we know and love, but over to you guys. How would you best describe Medvedev as both a player and a person? If you loved this video, be sure to smash that subscribe button, and if you missed out on our last upload, don't sweat it. I have it showing on the screen for you right here.